Hi guys, in this video we're going to look at section A and what type of research do you need to do. Now hopefully you've looked at the other two videos and you've understood what the parts are and you've understood what the mark scheme is asking of you, and hopefully you've got a rough understanding of what the section will look like. However, lots of students often ask me, what type of research do I need to do next, sir? And the trouble with that is I can't tell you, because it is ultimately an exam. I can't come around and tell you need to do this next. So you need to answer this question yourself. Hopefully this video will give you a rough idea of how you're going to go around doing that. So the question is not what type of research you want to do, but where are you going to do it? When is it going to come up in your folder? And also, how are you going to go about completing it? So those are the three things we're going to focus on in this video. So if we looked at this line and imagined that was your folder from start to finish, so we've got the context, and you probably would have got that on June the 1st, and you've got your final prototype being the thing you finished making right at the end. In old style GCSE, you'd often have the research right at the beginning, and then you'd have all the sections there onwards, and you wouldn't look at your research ever again, and all the marks were given right at the beginning. Whereas the new NEA, there's the context, there's the final prototype, has research at the beginning. The new NEA does do that. You do get marks for research at the beginning, and the project does run very similar to how it's been run before. The most important thing is research carries on through the whole project. It doesn't just stop and start in these first 3 or 4 pages. It's often done and put on the bottom corner of a page in your ideas, or even on your manufacturing plan. You've got like a second page stuck to it that shows different joints research or how you're going to use the machinery, etc. So the research goes on through the whole project, and it's really important you understand that it's not just this one thing you do at the beginning, it's something that's going to affect your project through the whole time. Now, if we looked at the mark scheme and we said the bottom section here, so we've already looked at the top sections, let's look at the bottom point. It says you need to have an extensive evidence that investigation has taken place throughout the whole project. Therefore, you need to be constantly understanding what type of research you need to do and doing that research throughout the whole project and not just at the beginning. So what type of research do you need to do, or how are you going to go about it? So we've got primary and secondary. We know primary is something you've gone away and completed yourself, and we know secondary is something you've already taken from somewhere else, for example, like the internet. Some examples of primary could be your client interview, a customer survey, etc. And some examples of secondary research could be some internet research, or maybe you've looked at some scientific journal to back up your problem. You need to make sure you've got both of these. The reason for that is the exam board like you to do both types of research. They don't like you just to simply look on the internet and then go away and design something. They want you to be able to do both types of research, and it's important that you've got both of them really clearly identified in your folder. Now, let's go back to this question. What research do you or do I need to do? Now again, everyone's will be different, because if someone is making a gadget tidy, it's going to be completely different to someone making a habitat. They're not going to be the same types of research, and I can't just say to you, do this, and go away. You need to make your list yourself. So let's go through some examples and hope that'll make sense. I've got this habitat sort of context on the screen. So if I was looking at what type of research I'm going to do, well, obviously, I've done some client interview work and I've done some existing product work, because that's in the mark scheme. They're quite obvious. I know I need to do those, but the other bits of research are relevant to that context. So what I might need to do is look at the size of the animal that it's going to go into it. For example, if I'm making a dog kennel, I'm not going to make a small dog kennel for a massive dog. That's not going to make sense. I'm also going to want to look at what type of habitat a different type of animal likes. So if I'm doing a hedgehog house, for example, I'm going to want to know what type of habitat a hedgehog likes. Is it going to like this dark and dingy and damp area, or is it going to want a light, easy to access area? Again, a hedgehog house is going to need different requirements to a bird house. So you need to do the research based around those. Now, the materials and research and finishes research are really important, but again, if I was doing this habitat research, I wouldn't do that initially. I'd do that after I've come up with some design ideas. That's really crucial. Let's look at another context, helping the elderly and storing medicine. So again, I've got my list of research here. I've got a client interview. That's really important. And I've got my existing product research. That's also really important. But again, those two are in the mark scheme. So I need to come up with some other types of research. Now, the final one I want to look at is this gadget tidy. This is something that a lot of students love to do. It's a project that a lot of people make. But again, the research is not the strongest. Let's look at the client interview. There it is again. Let's look at existing products. There it is again. Now, the rest of it is really important. Again, I'm going to want a list and sizes of the different types of gadgets that need to be stored. I'm going to want to look at where it's going to go. Is it going to be a freestanding product? Is it going to be something that's left on a shelf? Is it going to be something that's going to be in a drawer? I need to know that because that's going to ultimately impact my design. I'm going to want to interview a customer, someone that's going to actually physically buy the product. What do they want from it? How much do they want to spend, etc., etc. Potentially, do I want it to be charged? Do I want to charge up the projects, the gadgets at the same time? How am I going to store them? Are they going to be safe? Are they going to be protected from dust or grime, etc., etc.? So all this research needs to be done for that specific project. So over this past 4 contexts you can see, I've not just come up with the same research other than the client interview and the existing products. Yes, they come up quite frequently because they're on the mark scheme, but everyone's research will be different based upon everyone's different contexts. So this question of what research should I do is not one that's easy to answer. I always like, through my own experience that is, to come up with a list here of different types of research. I know what research that Lego storage is going to need because I've been doing this for many years. You may not. You might come up with this list, and let's say you are doing a Lego storage project, but you might decide you don't need to look at anthropometrics. You might have planned on doing it, but you don't need to. After you've done 2 pages of research, you might think, that's not relevant, I don't need that. So that's fine, you don't need to do it. You might add in something else. You might decide this in-depth client interview doesn't need to take place here. It might take place in 12 weeks' time. That's absolutely fine as well. This is just a plan. It doesn't mean you have to stick to it and things can change. So this question of what research should I do, there is no simple answer because everyone's project will be different. But from this video, hopefully you've got an idea of how you can go about it and hopefully some ideas of what type of research you need to do in order for you to write your design specification, which is the next section of your NEA.